I usually open my videos about remakes and remasters by saying that they matter and that the ultimate goal of a remake or remaster should be to just get the game playable on modern consoles, because most people don't know how to emulate games, they don't want to emulate games, and they also don't have their old consoles and CRTs and HDMI converters and all of this stuff to be able to play these old games. And that's not even taking into account some of these older games, if you want to play them legit, are really, really expensive. And I guess over the past year I've become known in a small way of being kind of lax about remakes and remasters. I'm not really too critical of them because ultimately they are now playable on modern consoles. And that brings me on to House of the Dead 2 Remake, and it kind of puts me in a bit of an awkward situation. So I went out and I bought House of the Dead 2 and 3 on the Wii version, played it on the CRT, and even though out of all the House of the Dead games, 2 is the one that I have the least experience with in arcades, it looks like a faithful remake or remaster or port, whatever it is on the Wii. And it looks like House of the Dead 2. That's what it looks like. It feels like House of the Dead 2. It looks like House of the Dead 2. And it plays like House of the Dead 2. And in the case of these remakes of House of the Dead 1 and now House of the Dead 2, they feel pretty good to play. Like in the tier list of controlling light gun shooters, obviously you have the analog stick, which is the worst. I just think analog sticks for light gun shooters is terrible. And then above that, you have the mouse, which is really accurate, but also I kind of just find it really boring because you're just clicking on a screen. It's not as entertaining as it is actually aiming something. And then I'd say just above the mouse, you have the Joy-Cons, because the Joy-Cons do have some issues where it just doesn't feel 100%. And then above that, and to my surprise, is actually the Wii mode. When I was playing House of the Dead 2 on the Wii, it feels fantastic to play over there. And then on top of that, of course, you have the light gun. The light gun is amazing. And I have a PS2 light gun and I have played a bit of Time Crisis. It really is fantastic. But obviously, nothing beats the arcade experience of going in and seeing the cabinet, because since this is a nostalgia and retro channel, there is something special specifically about the House of the Dead cabinets, because in my local arcade when I grew up when I was younger, there was a House of the Dead 1 cabinet and it absolutely petrified me. It was terrifying. I managed to play it a couple of times, but it genuinely gave me nightmares, and I was actually afraid to go to that corner of the arcade because you'd hear all the noises. Oh, it was just so creepy. We used to go on holidays in Orlando, and the clubhouse where we stayed had a House of the Dead 1 cabinet, and I actually got one of the highest scores on that, and I did manage to beat it. But again, it still absolutely terrified me. So there's almost something, I don't know, taboo or just really off-putting about House of the Dead, but because of that, it's really, really memorable, especially when you're a kid. But House of the Dead 2 is a game that I have very little experience with, to be honest. I probably maybe only played it a couple of times in the arcade, and then if I remember correctly, Typing of the Dead is House of the Dead 2, but with typing, and I did play a small bit of that, but my memory of this game is basically zero. I remember the first chapter and a half, maybe 2 chapters, but after that, I don't really know anything about it. Now, of course, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the visuals of House of the Dead 2 Remake. Now, it's the exact same as House of the Dead 1 Remake. It is just kind of ugly, and it's just a bit of a shame because the enemy models, some of them are actually kind of detailed, but when you shoot them, they ragdoll into these, I don't know, weird ragdolls, and then this gooey, almost jelly-like blood comes out of them, and it just doesn't look good. It doesn't feel satisfying to shoot them because the visual feedback just isn't there. And if you really sit down and look at the environments, you just sit there and think, oh my god, the way the light hits the levels make everything almost look clay-like. I don't know, it's so difficult to describe how this game looks, but obviously you are looking at gameplay right now, so you can see exactly how it looks, and it just never looked right. From the original trailer of House of the Dead 1 Remake to me actually playing House of the Dead 1 Remake to now me playing House of the Dead 2 Remake. That is the biggest shame about this whole collection, because yes, the games are playable, but Jesus Christ, are they ugly. Because look, here's CRT footage of House of the Dead 2 on the Wii. Just look at how good this game looks. And then you move over to House of the Dead 2 on the Switch, and you're like, oh my god, this is crazy. And I never really want to sit here and like backseat develop a game, because I don't know what went on behind closed doors. I don't know what the team were doing or how much time they had or how much budget they have. There's so many different moving parts to creating a game that I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, it should have been this way or it should have been that way. But there is a game on Steam, and it is a House of the Dead like. It's a light gun shooter, or well, you use a mouse for it. I presume you could probably use the Syndon light gun for it, maybe, I don't know. But I'll just pop up the trailer here. I forget the name of it right now, but if you just look at this, this is what House of the Dead 1 and 2 Remake probably should have looked like. There are so many games that accurately recreate that mid-90s to, you know, early 2000s aesthetic so well. If you look at games like Crow Country, there's just a load of these games that are recreating that PS1, N64, Dreamcast, that era of gaming. And that's the biggest problem with these remakes, is that you're playing them and you're having fun. They give you a great light gun shooter experience with the Joy-Con. They add in loads of little bells and whistles. I actually think from a gameplay perspective, and I will go into it later, these ports, and they're actually just really fun to play. And the fact that I could play them on my Switch, I could just detach the Joy-Cons, rest the thing on my desk or my lap or whatever, and then there you go, I'm playing House of the Dead with essentially a light gun, in air quotes, is just fantastic. But every single time you're playing it, you're like, oh my god, if this just looked even 20% better, I would be so happy. But unfortunately, it's just, oh no, it's just such, it really is just such a shame that this game looks like that, because it's the only thing holding it back. Because even with House of the Dead 1 Remake and House of the Dead 2 Remake now, they are really, really fun to play. Now, one thing I will say, if you get the Switch version, I don't know if these were the default controls in House of the Dead 1 and then they changed them for House of the Dead 2, but the default controls in House of the Dead 2 for the gyroscope, terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. I moved mine down to 0.9 sensitivity and 0.5 dead zone, and then it was great. But I think it starts at like really high. It could be like 5 sensitivity and 2.5 dead zone or something. So I would recommend you drop that down a lot, because then it starts to feel quite good. Because earlier on I said that the Wiimote is better than the Joy-Cons, and I do think that is true. I don't know, there's just something steadier to the Wiimote when I was playing it. It felt like I could be more accurate. And at the start, I was like, this is genuinely unplayable. I don't know what they did with the controls. But once I tweaked it, then I was like, okay, put the graphics aside. Let's just try to play the game and enjoy it and see what the game has to offer. And once you do that, you're like, oh, this is actually a really fun and great version of House of the Dead 2, because as I said, I just beat it on the Wii and I had a great time. Then you move over to the Switch version. Now, I believe while the paths are the same and the enemy placements also seem to be exactly the same, the environments look slightly different. And again, I don't really care about that. That doesn't really bother me. So you can choose 2 different modes. There's one that's the classic arcade experience. You have X amount of lives, you have X amount of credits, and you go through. I don't think there's any additional weapons in this one. I think it is just the pure House of the Dead 2 experience, so they have that. But then they also give you the modern mode. And in the modern mode and the modern scoring, the game I actually think is just a bit more fun. It's very simple in its original form, and that's great. House of the Dead 2 is still a fantastic game. And it's all about sort of accuracy, whereas the new modern scoring in that is a bit different. In the original, you're just trying to like 2-tap the zombies in the heads. Here, you actually get more score the more bullets you put into them, so you're actually just spamming the shoot button. And it does add to the chaos, and I do like how it feels. And at the start of the run, you choose like 2 perks, and they're anything from extra credits or extra lives to new weapons, to increased mag capacity, to increased damage. And I like how they wove those collectibles into the game now. To my understanding, I don't think these collectibles were ever in the original. And when you're going through the levels on the new mode, you actually have to look out for more. When you're breaking the barrels, they're not just score multipliers and maybe an extra life or whatever. You're actually finding new weapons, or you're finding the little perks that you can get, and then on your next run you can use them, and it changes it up a bit. Now, one thing that I will say is the first boss, the big guy with the axe and the flying imp fella, is awful. They destroyed this boss. So in the Wii version, I will be comparing to the Wii version because I don't have the arcade version, and you know, that's just my point of reference. He still moves around, he flies up and down, and he's kind of hard to hit, but he's pretty easy because you have the cursor. But it seems that in House of the Dead 2 Remake, they made his movement way more sporadic, and there's some points where, no joke, you have a second, half a second to be able to shoot him, and it's ridiculous how quick you have to be able to shoot him. And they just made him overall worse, because obviously we know that when it comes to these arcade games, they were designed to guzzle up your money. They deliberately put shit in, like enemies jumping out at you randomly, and I don't know, you'll get hit by a projectile that's basically off the screen, or there's just loads of different stupid, cheesy ways that they manage to get money out of you. And those bosses that zip around the screen were the ultimate, like, quarter guzzlers, if you want to use that term, because they're just really difficult to hit. Now, when you have a cursor, like on the Wii, I actually find it a bit easier. than using a light gun, especially because most light guns will never really be calibrated properly, and especially now as you're playing on old machines, they just don't work properly and they need to be fixed and whatever. So those sort of bosses I find are actually easier with a cursor when you're playing on the Wii or the Joy-Con. But here they just made his movement so sporadic and they just kind of made the boss fight. He's by far the hardest boss in the game. And that's saying something because when you fight, I believe, what's his name, the magician, the guy from House of the Dead 1, at the end of House of the Dead 2, he's still kind of bullshit. And yeah, it's pretty ridiculous that they managed to make a already annoying boss even more annoying. And see, apart from that boss being slightly different, I think the big lizard boss guy might be slightly different too. He didn't jump down into the water, so maybe that's a different variant, I'm not sure. But apart from that, it does seem to be pretty faithful. And see, House of the Dead 1 is the game that I have the most nostalgia for, and I love it. I also love House of the Dead 4, but apparently that's not great anymore. It was actually in the NASCAR cafe on City Walk in Orlando, if anyone's ever been there. That's where I played a lot of that game, and I used to dual wield Uzis and shoot. It was great. And that brings me on to the let's talk about this game section of it, because that's the problem. I love House of the Dead. It is now playable on modern consoles, and most other light gun shooters aren't. Like, I don't think you can play any Time Crisis outside of Time Crisis 4 on the PS3, but that game is really expensive now. And that's even if you consider a PS3 a modern console, because a lot of people don't have a PS3. So most light gun shooters are totally inaccessible in almost every single way. And now with House of the Dead 1 and 2 Remake, they are both accessible on modern consoles and they play really well. I think the gyro aiming is great. Again, it is a step down from even the Wiimote, but I still think it's a great way to play it. It gives you that kind of arcade experience. But it's one of them where I want to see this game do well. I want more of these ports. I want House of the Dead 3, eventually want House of the Dead 4. But the fact that they look like that, it just makes it so hard to recommend at full price, because you just know that it could look so much better than it does. Again, it plays really well. And I like all the little bells and whistles they added in with the new weapons. You're looking out for more in the levels. House of the Dead 2 just as a game is fantastic. It just has so many different branching paths, different variants of bosses that you fight depending on what way you go, and it's just an amazing game. I had so much fun playing it, and I will keep playing it. I will keep, I don't know, just dipping in and playing a run every now and again, because a run is like 45 minutes if you're good to an hour. Like, I think my first run took me like an hour, but I could probably get it down to like 45 minutes, especially if you skip all the cutscenes and stuff. So it's not a long game, and it's just great to dip in and play it. But every single time you play it, the only thing you will think about is, this game could have looked a lot better. And it's a shame. It really is. Like, it genuinely is a shame. Do I think it's a great game and a really fun game to play? Yes. Do I think from a gameplay perspective, is it a great remake and all the added bells and whistles? Yes. But am I also sitting there thinking that it could have been so much more and it could have looked so much better? Yes. And that is realistically the thing that I come walking away from playing these games. Like, after playing House of the Dead 2 on the Wii and seeing how fucking amazing that looks on a CRT on the Wii, it's like, that is just top notch. Absolutely fantastic. And then you go on the House of the Dead 2 remake and you're like, could have looked so much better. I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. I don't know, I think this is made in Unity, but you know, when you see a game that was made in an engine, like, oh, this is a UE4 game, this is a UE5 game, or this is a Unity game, that's what this looks like. And if it was just slightly better, maybe the models were slightly more detailed, maybe the blood didn't look like jelly, maybe the lighting just hit the world slightly differently, I could be like, okay, it's okay. But is it okay? Is it okay in its current state the way it looks? I don't know. Let me know what you think, because I just want to be able to play light gun shooters in a modern way. Like, yes, I have these CRTs, and like, I went out and I bought all the Time Crisis games on PS2 and PS1. I bought a GunCon 1 and then a GunCon 2, and they were so difficult to find. And that little wire that comes with the GunCon 2 is so expensive for the PS2. And they are so good. So much fun. And playing them on a CRT, there is no better, well, obviously the arcade is a better experience, but that is as close to an arcade experience that you can get at home, and it's fantastic. But if somebody came to me and said, here's all your favorite light gun games on modern consoles, and they look okay, I would be happy. But just don't think this does. So yeah, I know I just rambled. It's just what it is. I appreciate everybody watching. Let me know what you think. Are you gonna buy this game? Because again, I want to see it do well, but goodbye.